The chief of Israel Home Front Command, Shai Klapper, has urged the public to prepare safe spaces as well as comply with instructions from authorities. And in response to U.S.-Israel attacks, plunging the Middle East into a new conflict that U.S. President Donald Trump said would end a security threat to the United States and other Iranians as a chance to topple their rulers. Iran has now launched missiles towards Israel, and the Pentagon meanwhile says the U.S. strikes against Iran are named Operation Epic Fury. Let's now welcome SABC News correspondent Nick Harper, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. with the very latest update. Nick, it's very good to have you with us. A very good afternoon. So give us the latest in the U.S., Israel and Iran conflict and how Americans have reacted to these developments so far. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, Donald Trump put out a very strong video message, about an 8-minute message in the middle of the night from his Mar-a-Lago residence, posting it on his social media platform, Truth Social, in which really he explained the reasons, as he saw them, for the US carrying out these attacks, because there have been weeks of threats and military build-up, all heading towards this inevitable conclusion, you might say. We know that those airstrikes were carried out in coordination with Israel overnight, attacking not just the Iranian capital, Tehran, but multiple sites right across the country. Israel targeted military and government officials, while we're told the US targeted Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile facilities. Donald Trump said all of this was a major combat operation, that it was a massive and ongoing campaign. And he also said that he was doing it to protect the American people, to protect allies in Europe, and ensure that Iran never was able to obtain a nuclear weapon. He also said that Iran was close to developing intercontinental ballistic missiles that could reach the United States. However, US intel suggests they are still another 10 years away. Really, in that speech, he was laying out the case for strikes to the American people, because we know polling has showed the majority of Americans do not agree with the potential military action in Iran. There has been polling done over the last few weeks in which many people have said, the majority of Americans have said that they don't trust Donald Trump's judgment when it comes to military action. There has been lots of reaction, Americans waking up to this morning. It's just gone 8 o'clock Saturday morning. On Capitol Hill, we've seen a mixed response, with Republicans and Democrats almost in equal measure, both congratulating the president but also condemning him. One Republican who's come out against the president called this an act of war, saying Donald Trump had again carried out military action without authorization from Congress, as he would normally need to get. However, we have also seen both Republicans and Democrats thanking the president for taking this decisive action. One Republican saying that it was necessary and long overdue. Very interesting indeed, Nick. I mean, while we talk, I mean, we are basically showing an Iranian protest that is currently taking place out in London. Of course, you know, there has been fears of this current conflict actually sparking wider regional conflict. Talk to us about the fact that we hear Trump has also warned of possible loss of American lives as the U.S. military campaign intensifies, and also talk about some of those instructions that have been given to the public at this stage in regards to safety as well as travel alerts. I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of the question, but just in terms of what Donald Trump has said in terms of personnel, he did warn that there was the possibility of American lives being put at risk, the possibility of there being American casualties. As of about an hour ago, we were hearing from US military sources that there had not been any US casualties so far, but they did say that that was the caveat. There could be in the coming hours or days. We know that Iran has retaliated by carrying out strikes against, they say, 6 US air bases in 6 different countries around the region. One of them in particular in Bahrain managed to strike the target, the US Navy's 5th Fleet Service Center that is based in Bahrain. So there was that warning from the US president that there could be US casualties, but the case that he was making was that those casualties, if there were any, would be justified for the military action that he is taking, that overall he is trying to keep Americans safe, he is trying to keep the region safe, and he is trying to ensure that Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities are completely degraded to the point of being non-operational.
Nick, how is Congress then, I know you mentioned Congress earlier on, how is Congress then expected to react to this move by the United States to attack Iran alongside Israel? Any indication as well as to how the U.S. government is preparing for any retaliatory action from the Iranian side? As we heard, they've basically stated that all U.S. targets now will be attacked.
Yes, so just to break up those two parts, Congress first. I mean, we will hear a furious response, and we're already beginning to see this from Democrats in particular. Remember, any US president is meant to seek congressional authorization first. He's meant to get approval from lawmakers to carry out any strikes. Donald Trump in his first term didn't do that. And even just 2 months ago, when the US carried out that military action in Venezuela, capturing the then president Nicolas Maduro, again, that was military action that the president took, sidestepping Congress, not informing them in advance, and certainly not getting authorization from them. So there is already that response from Democrats that, again, they say the US president has overstepped his authority, has taken a unilateral decision that they believe will put Americans at risk. In terms of how to respond to that retaliation from Iran, we know that these US bases, they have air defenses to be able to intercept any missiles from Iran or any other countries. But these are US bases that are on foreign soil within different countries around the region, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain. We are seeing those countries now also responding because they say that their sovereignty is being violated by Iran attacking those US bases on their soil. And there is therefore that possibility that those other countries may get dragged into the conflict because they may want to retaliate against Iran. And that has always been the biggest fear here, that whatever the US does is not in a vacuum. It has that possibility to suck in other countries, to make this a much wider regional conflict and potentially a protracted conflict. The US has managed to extricate itself recently, in the last 5 years, from the war in Afghanistan, the US's longest running military campaign. 20 years it went on, the US withdrawing in the summer of 2021, a chaotic withdrawal that really many Americans pointed at and said this should never happen again, this type of elongated military involvement. So here we are, potentially on the precipice of a long, protracted conflict that draws in other foreign countries. And I think many Americans waking up this morning will be very worried, looking at their TV screens, looking at their phones, reading the newspapers, and seeing what is unfolding in the Middle East.
Absolutely, Nick. We're going to, of course, keep touching base with you in terms of what is actually happening on the ground out in Washington. That is SABC's Nick Harper joining us live from Washington, D.C. with the very latest from the U.S. on the Iranian attacks.